Mr. Fix-It with the Bed Shed Kilbeggan. Need a new bed or mattress? Our helpful and experienced team will be only too happy to guide you to the best choice for you. Find the Bed Shed on Facebook and Instagram.
Now, welcome back to the programme. It's Midlands Today. Aidan Barry sitting in for Will Faulkner here. We're live from Athlone today, coming live from the Supermax Roadcaster. We're here outside Golden Island Shopping Centre in Athlone with thanks to Cree and to Medtronic. Now, it's time at this stage for Mr. Fix-It. And Brian, can you hear me this morning? You can indeed.
I can hear you clearly, Aidan. How are you?
This is great. I can get advice, but we don't have to face off in the studio.
That's a bit harsh. Can I just be very clear? If there's going to be any insults thrown here today, it's me that throws the insults.
Yeah, you're well capable of it, I'm sure. Well capable of it, sure indeed. Anyway, listen, good to talk to you again. I haven't been chatting to you in a long time.
Absolutely, you're keeping well.
Anytime I've been on, I haven't been doing Wednesdays, so I've been avoiding you. But anyway, it's good to chat today.
Successfully avoiding me.
This is it. Quick question for you. As I was coming in today, I could see people on the roadside out with these leaf blowers, blowing leaves all over the place and trying to sort them out because it's that season at this stage. What do you recommend in terms of, let's say, for people's ordinary gardens and so on, with a lot of trees overhanging and so on? Do you recommend a blower and just blow it into an area and pick it up, or do you go for the full vacuum and mulch job? What is recommended there?
No, I'd always recommend a blower because the mulch can get damaged easily enough in that, if you have gravel, if you have stones and if you pick up something that'll damage the mulcher and then the whole thing is damaged. But I would say to people, get a battery operated blower. It's much handier than a petrol one, because the petrol one is A, heavy, B, noisy, and C, if you're not good at maintaining an engine, and like any engine, you need to use it regularly, or it will seize up. And the problem is, you tend to only use the blower in the autumn. And then, of course, you take it out next year, having not used it, having intended to use it just to keep it going, but you never think of it. And then the problem is there's a problem with it and you're struggling to get it started. And all the people that sell the petrol ones also sell the battery operator ones. You can get like an 18-volt leaf blower. You'll get an hour of continuous use, maybe an hour and a half at the most. But if you get two batteries with it, a lot of them do a deal where you'll buy a second battery with it for, not too much money. And that gives you a couple of hours of blowing. You'll do an awful lot in a couple of hours. And I'd also say to people, like on gravel, blow it off. On tarmac and concrete, blow the leaves off. On the lawn, do blow the leaves off the lawn, because if they sit there, that area underneath the leaves will go bald because of lack of light. And nobody wants to be bald, do they, Aidan?
God, no, absolutely not. Spare us that. Spare us that.
But I'd also say on shrubbery, just leave it. Like, leave the leaves. I think they look lovely on shrubbery, just to leave the leaves there until they well and truly break down. They're great for keeping the weeds down. They're great for providing a bit of mulch to the shrubs. And then, of course, eventually, when they've more or less broken down in the spring, you'll rake them off. But instead of, like, if you had a big enough garden, you might fill a ton bag, you might fill 20, 30, 40 wheelbarrows, and if you leave them to break down, then in the spring you'll only fill 3 or 4 wheelbarrows. Or if you happen to have a compost bin that goes out every week, just keep tipping away at filling it into the compost bin. And again, it's amazing the way, if you keep chipping at it, the way it'll break down and disappear.
Okay, by the way, if people want to contact the programme, it's 083 30 10 103. You get us on text or WhatsApp if you have a message for Brian. We're with Mr. Fix-It, Brian Cloonan, of course, from Cloonan's Hardware, William Street, Tullamore. And one that has come in on WhatsApp here now at the moment from Sinead. A question for Brian, please. The roof of my house has a greeny yellow stuff growing on it. It looks unsightly. The house is only 4 years old. We live in the countryside and the house is not surrounded by trees. People telling me not to power wash it. Is there something I can do to clear this up?
Yeah, so I'd always avoid the power washing, because every time you power wash a roof, you tend to remove the seal that's there. You potentially do damage to the surface if it's a painted surface, if the colour isn't intrinsic right the whole way through. Now, natural slate you can power wash, because that's a very tough surface and you won't do damage to it. But I would always say just simply use something like the ActiWash, the Drive Clear, the Moss Buster, one of those, and try and get this. Go into a shop and look at the dilution rates. Look at how strong it is. So the two strongest ones I've come across are the two I mentioned, the ActiWash and the Drive Clear. They have a very strong concentration. Now, the only thing is, all of those need to be used on a dry day. You want to dry 24 hours ideally after it goes on, and you also need to have the day above 6 degrees. So the lightest shower is okay, but you ideally dry weather. So now a roof dries out really quickly. It's up high, a couple of hours of wind, and it's bone dry. And greeny yellow would indicate. So the question is it an algae or is it a lichen? Yeah. So if it's an algae, then so for argument's sake, the Drive Clear you'd be mixing at 8-1 for algae, and the ActiWash should be mixing at 12-1 for algae. And then if it's a lichen, you'd be mixing it at I think it's at 4-1 for the Drive Clear and 6-1 or 8-1 for the ActiWash. So it's got to do with how much of an area you're going to cover, and always just leave it to work. I mean, if you leave it for a month, you will see a dramatic difference. And if anything isn't washed off in heavy rain, a stiff brush will be enough to take it off with very little effort. You know, if it's a bungalow, you're getting a long extension handle and put a brush onto the end of it and give it a brush and it'll all come off. Once it's well and truly dead, it'll come off. 9 times out of 10, you won't need to do anything. God will wash it off for you. He's fairly reliable at washing off the roof for us.
He's very reliable in Ireland, isn't he, Brian? Very reliable.
He is. Now, unfortunately, he's also providing the perfect conditions for the algae and the lichen and the moss to grow. But you know, you can't have everything. I always say to people, we get people in the shop and they say, now, what do I do to keep the moss from never growing on my roof, my patio, whatever it is? And I always say, well, look, there is one very simple solution. And you can see them leaning forward to hear the words of wisdom. And the words of wisdom from the Egypt is, if you move the house to Spain, you'll never have a problem with moss again.
That's it, isn't it? Yeah, the joys of living in Ireland.
Correct.
Joys of living in Ireland.
Correct.
Another quick question here. It says, good morning. What is the name of the heat silicone instead of fire? What's that? What is the name of the heat silicone instead of fire?
Oh, they probably mean instead of fire cement. So,
all right.
There's a couple.
And how do you use it? Is the second part of that.
Okay, question. So fire cement is a great product, but it does get crumbly and delicate very, very quickly. So if it's in a firebox, if it's getting direct flame, now never mind the heat for a minute, if it's getting flame, well then there is a resin-based fire cement. They call it fire sealant. It's not silicone, it's fire sealant. So it lasts a lot longer than fire cement, and it is able for flame. Now, if it was for sealing around the chimney, so somewhere that's getting heat but not getting flame, well then you can get a heat-resistant silicone that will take up to about 600 degrees, and it remains a flexible, soft silicone. And that's really brilliant, but it can't take flame. So they're the two options available to you. And sometimes people will do, so say you have an inspection hatch or a soot door, and sometimes the soot doors, the seal can go and they can leak a little bit of smoke. Well, then what you would do is you'd take off the inspection hatch or take off the soot door, and you'd put Vaseline all around the edge of the door, and you'll put the heat-resistant silicone into the opening, and then you'll put the soot door back on. And now you have a perfect seal that will never leak anything, but because you put the Vaseline on the door, it's not sticking to the silicone. So you've effectively made a perfectly formed gasket that won't leak anything, but can also be removed. And that's a very effective way of sealing up something without costing a fortune.
Okay, very good advice indeed, Brian. Absolutely. Hadn't a clue what you were talking about, but I'm sure it made perfect.
Great. Well,
sure
that's how I get away with all the bluffing I do. Most people don't have a clue.
I was wondering what is this about?
Now, just to be clear, I only have a vague clue of what I'm talking about, so that's fine.
Okay, it's all right, absolutely. Well, anyway, if you'd like more of that kind of advice, the number is 083 30 10 103. You can get us on WhatsApp or on the text line. Keep your questions coming in to Brian. We have him for another half an hour on the programme, but we've got to take a break now. We've also got the community diary on the way.
Mr. Fix-It with a Bedshed Kilbeggan. Quality, choice and value you can't beat. With over 80 beds, headboards and mattresses to suit all budgets. Find the Bedshed on Facebook and Instagram.
Now, welcome back to the programme. We're live in Athlone this morning on Midlands Today. It's Aidan Barry with you until 12 o'clock today. And we have Mr. Fix-It, Brian Cloonan, live in studio in Tullamore, from Cloonan's Hardware in Tullamore. And he's here to answer your queries. If you'd like to get in contact with the programme, it's 083 30 10 103. That'll work on WhatsApp or on the text machine. And going to the WhatsApp, hi Brian, in my mum's house we have very bad black mould on the ceiling over the windows. It's an old house, but what is the best way to remove it and prevent it coming back? That's from Mary or Marie.
Okay. Well, first of all, can I just ask, did you just say the text machine?
Did I say text machine?
I think you said on the text machine.
Yes.
Which, my father, who is 5 years gone now, who passed away at 92, might have referred to the text machine. But
exactly, yeah. I like the Airtel on the old telly as well.
Yeah. So listen, half the houses in Ireland, well, certainly a third of the houses in Ireland will have black mould somewhere. And it's basically caused by warm air. So basically warm, moist air in your house where you turn on the heat and you want the house as warm as possible. And you have a cold patch. And the cold patch, sometimes people will find that they didn't have any mould, and then they get the house insulated, which of course makes the house warmer, and then they say, I suddenly have mould, and it's that insulation, I shouldn't have gotten it. And of course they should have gotten the insulation, but sometimes for various reasons there are cold patches. If you get your house pumped, there can be an area that the pumped insulation just can't get to. So if you imagine a big wall and you're filling it full of insulation, or when the wall is being built, those insulated slabs went down in between a gap, and for some reason there was a patch of cement that the insulation couldn't get to, or there was a broken bit of insulation. So now you have this patch that is proportionately colder than everywhere else. And then the warm, moist air hits, same as coming out in the morning. You come out in the morning and it's cold outside, and you get into the car and you turn on the engine, and of course the warm air inside ends up causing the windscreen to get condensation, or your windows, when you open the curtains in the morning, the warm air creates condensation. It's the very same thing. You get condensation on the wall. You don't see it because it's almost invisible on the wall as opposed to glass, but it's there, and because it's continually moist, it doesn't dry out completely, and then you get mould forming. So all you do is get a good mould killer, and you treat it twice. You put on the mould killer, you leave it for 24 hours, and then you wash it off, and all the mould will be dead now and safe to handle. So you should never be breathing in mould spores. So ideally, when you're putting on the mould killer, put on a mask. Not because the chemical is toxic, but just the mould spores are not good for your lungs. And then after 24 hours, and by the way, always treat a bigger area than what you can see, because the mould spores spread out a lot further than what you can actually see. And then once you've killed off the mould, you can then repaint or wash off the dead mould or sand it lightly if needs be. But then when everything's done and dusted, whether you just get away with washing it or whether you have to repaint, when you're finished that, whatever it is, washing and painting, you then reapply the mould killer. And that acts as a preventative to stop it coming back. And if you can think of doing it, every start of every winter, say every September, early October, if you put on the mould killer when there's nothing there, it's a 2-minute job. When there's nothing there, it's a 2-minute job. You put it on at a stronger concentration, at a 3-to-1 mix or a 2-to-1 mix, just sponge it on, and then you'll have no mould, because the mould killer, the weed killer, if you like to think of it like that, will stop it from growing back.
Okay. Do you remember the little bit of advice you were given before the break that I didn't understand? Your man came back and said, great help for the heat resistance. He said, but what's the best brand name? That's Joe back to us about what we were talking about before the break.
There's loads of brands out there. Probably the best known one would be Vitkas, V-I-T-K, I can't remember. Vitkas, V-I-T-K-A-S or C-A-S, I can't remember. That would be probably the best known brand. But honestly, you'll find they all do the job. There's so many brands. I think Everbill do one, Sikkens and CK or Bostik. They all do them. But Vitkus would definitely be the best known brand. Or Douglas would be another well-known brand.
Okay. A lot of stains in the programme this morning. We've had stains on the roof, we have stains on the ceiling, and now we have stains in the sink.
Oh, good. I don't know why
Brian,
underwear came into my mind, so I'm glad it's not that.
Oh, God. Spare us, Brian. Spare us your problems, okay? We have black. We have a black, is it Frank sink?
Frank? Oh, yeah, Frank. I never know is that pronounced Frankie. There's an E at the end of it.
F-R-A-N-K-E, yeah.
When you're from Ireland, you call it Frankie.
We definitely do, yeah. Anyway, they have a black Frankie sink and it's now covered in white and brown stains. What can I use to get the black back again?
So you have to be very careful here now because a black surface like that can get damaged very easily. So what you do is you get something like the HG concentrated lime remover and you put it on and you only leave it on for a maximum of 10 minutes. Now, in 10 minutes'
time... Is it the water that's causing that?
It's the water. Oh, God, yeah, it's water.
Yeah.
It's water. There's lime in the water, and even there's very, very few areas in the country that don't have lime. Sometimes even with a water softener, a little bit can come through, and very often people don't fit the water softener to the kitchen sink. So they have the water softener, the mains water to the kitchen sink coming in directly, and everything else has the water softener applied to it. So everything that goes up to the attic, that comes down from the attic, that's all your hot taps and all your cold taps to the kitchen, everything except the kitchen sink, and therefore the lime is still in the water in the kitchen sink. And a Franke sink is a kitchen sink. They only do kitchen sinks. And so put on the lime remover, the concentrated lime remover, leave it for 10 minutes, get a nylon pad and give it a good rub, and then wash it all off, and then dry it completely with an old towel or something, because if you leave any of the concentrate on, it is a very mild acid, and if you leave an acid on a surface, it will dull the surface. So that part of the sink would look slightly different. So the best way to make sure that there's none left is kitchen roll or a towel or a rag, and give it a good wipe down afterwards to make sure it's completely free. And if there's areas that say around the plug hole could be worse than everywhere else, if there's areas that are not sufficiently well done, just do the very same thing again. Don't leave it there, wash it completely, dry it, and then start again and do the whole process a second time. Again, only 10 minutes each time, just to make sure you don't dull the surface.
Okay, we've got to take another break, Brian, on the programme. Let's take a quick break and we'll be back with more Mr. Fix-It right after these.
Mr. Fix-It with the Bed Shed Kilbeggan. Need a new bed or mattress? Our helpful and experienced team will be only too happy to guide you to the best choice for you. Find the Bed Shed on Facebook and Instagram.
Now, we're speaking with Brian Cloonan from Cloonan's Hardware on William Street, Tullamore, Mr. Fix-It. We've got about another 5 to 7 minutes left on the programme, so you need to get your text and WhatsApp in quickly, 083 30 10 103. Brian, somebody here has been very kind to you. I better give you this bit of praise. I have to say, anytime you go into Brian's shop, you're treated with kindness and respect. That's from Stephen in Ballinagore. Were you there in the shop at the time, Brian?
That's
a very important question.
Be any customer that comes into Cloonan's. Yeah, we treat everybody. Well, actually, I have to be honest with you. We have a sign up high in the shop now. I've noticed in the shop, in any business, that people don't look up, and they don't notice things up high. We have a big sign up, which I consider a disclaimer, and it says, the way our shop is all about advice. So we've a sign that says a word of advice, and then it simply says, don't bring your feelings into Cloonan's. So thanks to Stephen for basically telling a lie.
He's been very ambitious anyway. Yeah. He must want something. Anyway, thank you, Stephen. Thank you. Hi, Brian. During the summer, I was painting the house, and on the gable end of the house, on the roof, I noticed a few tiles on the roof on the gable side of the wall. Some are coming loose. Is there something I can get to stick them down the roof, or I'm afraid the strong winds that are coming, the strong winds that blow, will remove the tiles from the roof? So what do you recommend?
Definitely get. Look, there's a million of them. the main brand would be Tech 7, but there are loads of different generic Tech 7s, so which obviously they're a lot cheaper because they're generic. So any one of those, so they are like a silicone, except the adhesion quality is much better. They stick to a damp surface, and you would just barely lift the tile. Comes in a tube like a silicone tube. Squeeze in that and it won't budge. It's a very, very strong adhesive. I'd always suggest get the crystal clear one, so it's completely clear. If there's a little bit visible, well, again, no one looks up, to be honest with you, but if it's a little bit visible, you won't see it at all. It is genuinely crystal clear, and do that before they get any worse, definitely. And be careful.
Okay.
If you're not doing it yourself, get somebody that's competent, who has professional liability insurance if they're climbing up on your roof, because if they fall down and they don't have the insurance, it's your insurance that's going to cover it.
Oh, very important indeed. So check for certs before they go up on the roof. Big time.
Yeah.
Okay. More stains, Brian. More stains on the landscape. Roller blinds. I have roller blinds in all room and in the front of the house, and they've become particularly grubby, probably because of a fire, an open fire, maybe blackening a little bit from the fire nearby. What's the best way to clean roller blinds?
Well, the best way, the big thing is, I suppose, the first question is, are they fabric or are they PVC? So if they're PVC, they'll feel plasticky. And if they're fabric, they'll feel absorbent. You know, if you were to drop a little bit of water on them, you'd feel it, it'd soak into it. So if they're fabric, just use an upholstery or even a carpet cleaner, the foaming upholstery cleaner or the foaming carpet cleaner. It comes out like shaving foam. It doesn't drench it, and it does a really good job of cleaning. But then the important thing is you have to leave that down. So you can't clean it and roll it back up, because it will remain damp and that'll create mould growth. If it's a PVC one, a plasticky one, well then you can use, anything. You can use washing up liquid. You can use floor cleaner like Mr. Proper or Flash or something like that, and a nail brush. Give it a good scrub, dry it off, and again leave it down for the day to make sure that it dries out completely before you roll it back up, because you will definitely get mould. If you roll that back up, it's the perfect conditions for mould to grow in. It's damp, it can't dry out when it's rolled up, and you'll end up with a long-term problem.
Okay. Just a question about lighting the fire. With the cold mornings returning, I want to start lighting my fire again, but I've noticed a tar-like substance dripping inside the range. What is this and how can I stop it? Yeah,
so this again, when we mentioned the damp, every 1 in 3 houses probably has a damp spot. Well, then again, this is a case where 1 in 3 houses that have open fires or ranges or whatever, but particularly ranges, the problem is that they do get a build-up of tar, creosote. It's a sticky, horrible stuff, and it can eventually close up your chimney. We've had many a person who has had to take down their chimney completely. Get in somebody to take apart the chimney.
How do you take down your chimney completely,
It's
Brian?
a very specialised job. The chimney people that come in and do it, generally they claim it. You claim it off your house insurance, because it's a big job. It's not, it's not. There's no very quick, easy answer to it. And the problem is that tar. It's like the tar on the road. It's genuinely the very same thing. It's bitumen, like the tar on the road. And if it builds up incrementally over time, it is rock hard, and there's no chemical will remove it when it's rock hard. So the fact that this is still weeping is a good sign in one sense. So the big thing is burn hotspot or Comate or bluestone or the chimney cleaning log, and get rid of as much of that as you can, and then get the chimney cleaned. So if you're going to be using the powder, what you would do is use the powder for the next couple of weeks and then either clean the chimney yourself or get it cleaned. If you're going to be using the chimney cleaning log, what you would do is find out when your chimney sweep's coming and then burn a chimney cleaning log for 2 days, because that sticky tar, you can imagine you're trying to clean the chimney, you're just moving it around with the brush. Whereas if it's what the Comate or the hotspot or the bluestone does, or the chimney cleaning log, it dries out that and it leaves it converts it to a dry powder, and then when you clean, you do an infinitely better job. But there are many people who would use all winter long, would burn a spoon of bluestone or a spoon of hotspot once a week, twice a week. they get into a routine where they realize, they work out, if I do it twice a week, that's enough. If I do it once a week or 3 times a week, depending how bad the problem is. And the other thing to avoid is, in a range or a stove, try to avoid damping down at night. Open up the vents, let air move through it. The problem with this is that there's moisture in the chimney. There may not be a cowl or a Chinese hat or something on top to stop the rain from coming in. And if you leave the vents closed all summer, we did get wet. We got rain all summer. If the rain's coming in and the stove isn't on, it's not drying out unless you open up your damper and let air move through the chimney. It just builds up and builds up and builds up and causes a problem.
Okay. I think we have time for maybe one more question, Brian, for you. This is to do with kitchen units. The kitchen units were painted, and so they have a lightish colour on them. And they're saying here that the markings around the handles, the door handles where people go to open those presses and open the thing, that there's marks on those, like fingernail marks or whatever. How do you treat that in terms of repainting it or touching it up, or what do you do?
Yeah, so always just try. It depends really if it's a deposit, like as in a piece of dirt sitting on the surface. It's hard to take off. Sometimes in the kitchen you have food in your hands and you handle the doorknobs and then you leave a deposit behind. In that case, always try washing that with methylated spirits, or surgical spirits, or alcohol hand sanitizer, or gin or vodka. Always just use an alcohol first. It's very good at breaking down stubborn stains without affecting the surface of the paint. But if it's nails and the paint is removed, then I'm afraid it's just go back to the tin of paint and touch up that. And look,
can you just do that straight with the paint, or would you want to do anything in terms of priming it or do anything like that before it?
Depending on the paint that was used, most paints are now a lot of modern paints are really good at adhering to a surface like that. So just give it the lightest light rub, like super fine sandpaper, maybe 1200 grade emery paper. Like, it feels like newspaper, it's that smooth, but it does actually key the surface, and then just brush on a coat of paint. It will look a different shade, particularly at the beginning, even though it might be the very same tin of paint. The paint will have changed colour a little bit over time, but leave it for a week or two and then decide whether you need to do any more than that. 9 times out of 10 it'll blend in within a couple of weeks.
And you can touch up around the area and it will blend in. Or do you need to do a whole panel? Would you do a whole panel?
Oh, you won't know until you do one. So I would do is take off the handle, take off the screw at the back or the 2 screws at the back, and just see, am I going to do that, as you exactly say, the panel that comes right down, or maybe even the panel the whole way around. It depends on the design of the door. But just do one first, touch it up, see how it looks in a week's time. And if you're happy with it in a week's time, then do the very same thing everywhere else. Otherwise, you may have to paint the entire door panel.
Okay, we certainly don't want that.
We try to avoid it anyway, yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, that's our lot for today. Brian, thanks for joining us this morning. Good to chat to you.
Thanks, Aidan.
Okay, we'll catch up sooner again. We won't leave it as long again. Okay?
Excellent, great.
All right, thank you. We were speaking there with Brian Cloonan from Cloonan's Hardware, or Mr. Fix-It. He's here every Wednesday from 10 until 11 on Midlands 103. We're coming live from Athlone this morning, and we have another hour of Midlands today to come between 11 and 12. So keep it right here. We're heading for news now at 11 o'clock.